When I was pregnant, everybody kept asking me if I have a Kita place yet. So, what is a Kita? Kita is the German daycare center. In this video, I'm going to tell you everything about Kita in Germany. Hello everybody, my name is Cindy. I'm from My Life in Germany. On my website, you can find everything you need to know about studying, working, and living in Germany. So, what is a Kita? Kita is a very general term for daycare centers in Germany. It can be a nursery, it can be a kindergarten, it can also be after-school care. Let's first talk about nursery. Nursery is called Kinderkrippe in German. It is usually for kids between 1 year to 3 years old. But it really depends on the nursery because some of them may already accept kids who are younger than 1 year old. For example, 6 months old or even 3 months old. A nursery can be full day or half day. For a half day nursery, usually you can put your kid there until noon time. If it's a full day care, then you can put your kid until 4 or 5 p.m. If you live in a big city like Munich, you may even put your kid in the nursery until 7 p.m. If it is a full day nursery, your kid will usually also have lunch there and afternoon nap time. Most nurseries only speak German, but you may also find a bilingual nursery that speak other languages, for example, English and German. You don't have to put your kid in a nursery if you don't want to, but it is good for mothers who want to go back to work. For example, I put my kid to a nursery when she was 1 year old so that I could go back to work full time. Now let's talk about kindergarten. Kindergarten is for kids between 3 to 6 years old. So they have a similar opening hour like the nursery. It can be a full day or a half day. Most of the kindergarten are German speaking unless you go to a bilingual one. In kindergarten, the kids learn by playing. For example, they do a lot of storytelling, they sing and dance, and they make artwork, they paint and so on. They also have a lot of opportunities to play with other kids, either indoor or outdoor. By playing, the kids learn to deal with other kids and also solve conflicts. Sometimes kindergarten also organize local trips, for example, going to the zoo or they visit old people's home. The last year in the kindergarten is called Vorschule, so preschool in English. So in this year, the kids are already 5 years old and they will learn different things to prepare them to attend school in the next year. For example, they will go visit school and they will also learn how to catch a bus, etc. One thing I find very shocking is that the kids in Germany are not learning that much in the kindergarten. For example, they do not learn how to write or read so much. I grew up in Hong Kong, so in Hong Kong I remember I was already learning writing Chinese and English in kindergarten. So in Germany this is not the case. The kids learn by playing with each other. I find it very good because the kids can just be kids and play, and they will learn everything they need to learn at school. So how much does it cost to send your kid to a daycare center in Germany? It really depends. It depends on where you live. For example, in some states, like in Berlin, the daycare center is free of charge because the government is subsidizing it. So you have to only pay for the food and drink and some administration costs. But in other states, it is not the same. For example, in my case, I pay around 500 euro per month to send my kid to a daycare center full time from 7 to 5 p.m. There are different factors that affect your cost. For example, it depends on how many hours you book. The more hours you book, then you have to pay more. It also depends on your income because some of the Kita, they will look at your family income and charge you higher or lower depending on that. Another factor is how many kids you are sending to the Kita. Normally, they have a discount if you put your second or third kids there. It also depends on what kind of Kita you are sending your kids to. If you send it to a public one or a private one. For example, if you want to send your kids to a bilingual Kita, it can cost a lot more money. My friend sent her kids to a bilingual Kita that speak both English and German in Munich, and she has to pay around 1,000 euro per month. So in some states, the price for a nursery and kindergarten can be quite different. For example, here in Bavaria, where I live, I pay 500 euro per month to send my kid to a nursery full day, but I only pay around 150 euro per month to send my other kid to the kindergarten full day. It's because for the nursery, we have to pay everything, but for kindergarten, the state is subsidizing part of the cost. What are the different types of Kita in Germany? A Kita can be run by different organizations in Germany. For example, it can be a public Kita, that means it is run by the state. It can be a private Kita, so it is run by a private organization. So you will find those bilingual Kita, for example, run by private organization. It can also be run by religious institutions such as the church. In this case, your kid may participate in religious activities, for example, praying or visiting a church. Some Kita can also be run by parents. It is called a Parents Initiative Daycare Center. These Kita are run by parents and their kids are also in the same Kita. Even though they will also employ childcare workers in the Kita, you are supposed to help with the operation and maintenance of the Kita. For example, you will have to help with grocery shopping or gardening or repair the equipment in case something is not working, the laundry and so on. So the good thing about this kind of Kita is that you will get to know other parents very good because you always have to work together, you organize things together and so on. I have visited one of these Kita and I found it really great, but in our case it will be difficult because my husband and I are working full-time and we just don't have time to participate in so many activities. So that's why in the end we didn't choose this kind of Kita. I think this kind of Kita is good if the parents are working part-time or if she is a stay-at-home mom. What are the different pedagogical concepts? The first one I want to talk about is the Waldorf Daycare Center. We have visited one of these daycare centers before and it was so cool because they focus a lot in the nature. For example, this one Kita we visit, they were next to a river. So every day they will have breakfast next to the river, and this doesn't matter what weather it is. If it's raining, snowing, whatsoever, they will pack their stuff and sit next to the river and have breakfast together there. The kids in the Kita also play a lot outside, so they spend most of their time outdoor. Another concept I want to talk about is the Montessori Daycare Center. The Montessori concept is very child-centered, so the child can decide what they want to play. So instead of you telling them now what to do, the kid has the freedom to decide. They do not follow a fixed time schedule. Instead, the kid can decide what they want to play and what they want to do. There are also something called an integrative daycare center. These are normal Kitas that reserve a few places for kids who have disabilities. So the kids with disabilities and the normal kids will be in the same group and they can play together. This is a good way for the kids with disability to integrate. What is a settling-in period? The settling-in period is called Eingewöhnungsphase in Germany. This was for me very shocking at the beginning. So basically, you put your kid in the daycare center the first time. You cannot just leave him there because most of the time the kid has never separated with the parents and then they were in this new environment in the Kita. They will be scared and they will cry if the parents leave them. So what happened is that you are supposed to do everything slowly. The settling-in period normally range from 4 weeks to 8 weeks. Yes, I know it sounds crazy, but it is like this in Germany. And in my case, it took me 1 month to finish the settling-in period. So the first day, I brought my kid to the Kita and she could play around with me there. So she was most of the time just staying next to me because she was looking what is everything. And then the first day we just stay there for half an hour And the next day, again, half an hour. And the third day is a big step because I left my kid for some minutes. So that is, they call it the first separation. So what happened is that then I told my kid, hey, I'm going to the bathroom real quick so you can play here with the other kids. And of course, when I left the room, my kid cried for me. But then I was just outside for 5 minutes and then I came back. So we did this for a few days to see how the kid adapts. So in my case, my kid cried the first time, but then the second time she was better and she was better and better. So the separation period can be longer and longer. So first it was only 5 minutes, for example, then it increased to half an hour and it increased to 1 hour. Then I can let my kid there. I could go home and pick her up after 1 hour, 2 hours, or 3 hours. So the time slowly increased. After 2 weeks, she was staying in the kita for half a day, and after 4 weeks, she finally stayed in the kita for the whole day. So then the settling period is finished and she can then stay the whole day in the kita. So this is how it works in Germany. At first I found it very shocking because back in Hong Kong we don't have something like this, and basically you just put your kid in the daycare center and say goodbye, and yeah, they cried, but then they would stop at some point in time and then they would be adapt. And so it is just a very different concept here. I mean, it's not bad, it is nice for the kid, but I think it can be quite challenging for the parents, especially if both parents need to work and you need to somehow reserve 1 to 2 months for doing this settling in period, and it can be quite challenging. That's why many people, they take advantage of the parental leave, and so they use 1 or 2 months in their parental leave to fit in this settling in period before they start working again. How to find a daycare center in Germany. If you are looking for a public daycare center, you can usually find a list of them on your local city's website. Sometimes you will have to apply at the Youth Welfare Center. That is called Jugendamt in German. The Youth Welfare Center will organize and allocate all the places of public daycare centers to the parents. But it also depends on your cities. In some cities, you may have to apply directly at the daycare center by yourself. If you are looking for a private daycare center, you will usually find them on the internet. Or you can also ask your neighbor, your colleague, or your friends in the local area. You will usually have to go there and register directly. Some of them may let you apply by an online application form. You can check the website of the daycare center to understand the procedure, or you can just call them and ask them for the admission procedure directly. One thing which is good to know is that some companies in Germany may provide a nursery or a kindergarten directly at their office. Or they have a partnership with the daycare or kindergarten at their area so that their employee may get a place easier. This may be one factor to consider when you are looking for a job in Germany. In Germany, it's very competitive to get a daycare spot. So you should apply to at least a few daycare centers to increase your chance of getting a spot. When should you register your kid for a spot in the daycare center? If you live in a big city, it can be very competitive to get a spot. For example, I've heard many horror stories from people who live in Munich. They register and they wait for 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, and they never got a spot. And they don't need a spot anymore because their kid is already grown up. So you should register your kid as early as possible. So the best is once you're pregnant, you should already look for a place. It sounds crazy, but it is like this in Germany. So you should know that some of the kita do not let you register if your kid is not born yet. So in that case, you will need to register once your kid is born. But in my case, for example, I already visited many different kitas when I was pregnant, and I already registered my kid when she was still in my belly. So try to do it as early as possible. And another thing you should know is that the school year in Germany starts in September. So what happens is that if your kid was born in April this year, then she may not be able to get a spot in April next year, because during the year, normally there is no spot available and you will have to wait probably until September next year to get a spot, because that is the time when some kid goes from the kita to kindergarten or from kindergarten to the school. So some spots will open up, but during the year the chance is lower, but it's not impossible. For example, my first kid was born in January, and actually I was able to get a spot in January the following year. But this is really an exception because I am not living in a big city, so it really depends on your luck. And so you need to plan this as well when you are planning how long you should take your parental leave. If your parental leave starts in April, you may want to take 1.5 years, so not until April next year, but until September next year, because you may not get a daycare spot in April the following year. In case you don't get the spot at the daycare you want, you can ask to be on the waiting list. In case someone moves out from the daycare, you may get a spot there if you're on the waiting list. That's why you should try to apply to as many daycare centers as possible and get yourself on as many waiting lists as possible, especially if you live in a big city. What are the acceptance criteria from the daycare center? As we talked about it before, it's so competitive to get a place at the daycare center. So many people are curious, how do they pick which kid to accept? So in general, there are some different factors here. The first one is the hours you book. So many kita, they employ both full-time and part-time childcare workers. So depending on the availability of their workers, you may get a place if you are booking a full day or half day. The second factor is the religion. If you are going to a kita that is run by a church, they may prefer kids who has the same religion. But this is not always the case. For example, we do not have any religion, but my kid also attend a Catholic kindergarten. So this is not always the case. Another factor is if both parents working full-time, because if both parents are working full-time, then they have a more urgent need to have a space at the kindergarten. So usually you will have a higher chance to get a space. Another factor is for single parents and also for kids who have disabilities. These families are considered to have a more urgent need for a childcare place. So a daycare center will usually give the places to these families first. The next factor is the siblings. So if you already have one kid in the daycare center, it's likely that your second kid will also get into the same daycare. Another factor is your home address. So most of the time, the daycare center is accepting kids who live in the same area. So if you live in the next city, then it's a lower chance that you will get a place there. The age of the kid also make a difference if you are applying for a kindergarten, because the kindergarten believes that the older the kid, the more ready he is for the kindergarten. So for example, if your kid was born in March compared to another kid who was born in September, then your kid has a better chance to get a kindergarten place. Besides, if your kid are already 5 years old, so he should be going to Vorschule, which is the preschool, the last year of the kindergarten, and he will have a higher chance to get a place because he should go to Vorschule and prepare himself for school in the next year. If you apply for a parents' initiative daycare center, they will pick the kids depending on the involvement of the parents. As I said before, in this kind of daycare center, the parents should help with many different things like gardening, grocery shopping, laundry, and so on in the daycare. So they will have an interview with the parents and ask if the parents agree to work for certain hours per month for maintaining and running the daycare center. So your kid will not get a place in this kind of daycare center if you cannot commit to contribute some hours. The last factor is the timing. So if every factor is the same, then the daycare center may allocate a place based on a first-come, first-served basis. That means that you should apply as early as possible. What should you do if you don't get a spot at the daycare? This is the worry for many working mothers. They want to go back to work, but they cannot find any daycare space to put their kid. A good thing to know is that since 2013, every kid who is over 1 year old is legally entitled to a spot in the daycare center. Why? Because in 2013, three mothers, they didn't get a spot for their kid and they couldn't go back to work and they sued the city. And that's why now, legally, every kid who is over 1 year is entitled to get a space. Even though this is the rule, in reality, I know many people who have problem to find a space in the daycare center. The problem is that there are just too many kids and too little space available in the daycare. So what should you do if you don't get a place but you need to go to work? The first thing you should do is to talk to your city because they are legally required to give you a spot. So when you talk with the city, they will try to find a solution for you, especially if you need to go to work. So if they cannot find a daycare space for you, they will have to compensate your lost earning. For example, they will have to pay your salary when you cannot go to work because your kid is at home. This happened to my friend here. She didn't get any kindergarten space and should go to talk with the city. And after talking to the city actually give her a space of another kindergarten. So you need to fight for your right, and if you don't get anything, you need to ask the city for help. If that doesn't work, the next thing you can do is to bring in your lawyer. But talking to your city is the first step before bringing in your lawyer. So I hope now you have a better understanding about how daycare works in Germany. If you have any question, just write down in the comment section. If you like this video, don't forget to click the like button and subscribe to my YouTube channel. Have a great day. Cheers!